I couldn't not. Why would I? Why would I do it any other way? This was like, in all the affectations of all the movies of that era, I think, Really Cool Sunglasses was one of my absolute favorites. And the fact that Mammootty could pull it off as well as he did just boggled my mind. So right before getting on, I was like, I better make sure I've got my sunglasses for at least that moment. But unfortunately, I couldn't do anything about the eye. They both just work.
They both work. We are discussing Rajamanikyam, the 2005 comedy action movie, which was second place in our recent poll, a very close second place. So that's why we're doing this one, because if these two movies were not so neck and neck, we might have considered doing something else. But because, we can't let the high percentage of people that voted for this movie not have a review from us about this movie.
And I'm really glad that everybody voted and everybody said both of those things, because I would have felt strange having not watched both of these movies, because we were talking a lot in the last discussion about how I wonder if movies like this were kind of very popular at the time, and whether or not there was sort of a genre, a subgenre kind of bubbling up. And this made it clear as day that, this idea, this like group of friends being together and being able to achieve things, even though they had a lower status, I was just like immediately enthralled by it, and seeing a different perspective of it, with a different lead and different crew, and slightly different feel. This one was a little bit less funny. This one took itself as a little bit more seriously, and I was just thrilled to be able to have these two, not necessarily to compare, but to enjoy and understand the culture a little bit more, especially around that time.
Correct. And they are around the same time. Chota Mumbai was out in 2007, I think it was 2007, and this movie was out in 2005. So there's definitely we are getting a slice of what it was like in the 2000s around the comedy action genre, I guess, and two different approaches to the genre, despite the same director, who uses a few little commonalities between them. Like, we got to see a bit of his directional style. I could tell a little bit more as to how he sort of likes to put I frame, I guess, different actors, the way he sort of frames Mammootty, the way he frames Mohanlal, and some of the ways he sort of, I guess, makes a distinction between the two. Like that was one thing that I found really fascinating in this movie. But overall, man, before we get into it, we are going to be doing our review reaction thing. So we have a whole bunch of scenes lined up, which we're going to talk about. I'm going to have a lot of fun with. But overall, man, what were your thoughts about this movie?
So I'm not going to try to do much comparison between the two, but what I will say, what I loved most about this movie is that it is that, what I just mentioned before, it's a group of friends that are so vehemently with somebody, and somebody that worked so hard to have everything that they have, and can treat people empathetically, but can also be imposing, and they can be, absolutely crushing when it comes to the necessity for violence, and they can make their point, and they can get in and out, and they have a goal. And that goal is simply to be existing in a place and time where everybody is treating everybody else fairly. And the only time they stray from just having a good time is when they must. And I miss that. I really, really enjoy that era of cinema where it was just like, we'll do what we'll do. Well, I'll do what I have to when I have to. But until then, I'm perfectly fine being over here with my bulls. There's a scene later on in the movie, and I love when they're trying to figure out who Raja really is, and
yes.
And he's got a place over here, and here he's got a different name, and over here he's got a different name. And that to me was the thesis statement of the movie. He doesn't have to do what he's doing, but he's honor bound, and he just wants to do it. And I loved that. That was, as soon as I saw that scene, it was like, I get this movie top to bottom. Excellent. What about you?
Correct. Yeah, no, I definitely, that's a part I liked about it too. I did like being taken back to that sort of genre, that sort of time. Because, there was some, I see it less now, I would say, in Hollywood at least. I feel like I saw it more growing up in the 90s and 2000s. So this is representative of that time as well for me, even though I didn't grow up with Malayalam cinema. Like, it does remind me of, what I grew up with as well, which is very comforting in a way too. The thing that I really was looking for in this movie was how are they going to handle the sort of genre blending? Like, if I was to compare the two movies, because I also don't want to compare them too much. I think both were excellent in their own ways as well. And I enjoyed the portrayals of Mohanlal and Mammootty. But the through line that you said about the whole friendship thing is probably something I enjoyed quite a bit. But I wanted to see, how does this movie handle the comedy aspect with Mammootty, who I have not seen too much in a comedy role, to be honest. Like we've seen, I've seen quite a few Mammootty movies, and he plays really good serious characters.
Very, very, very,
Very powerful.
especially from some of my own more recent
Yeah.
experience with Paranbo, just being like, whoa,
Yeah. I know that one was.
whoa, like
Yeah.
and a lot
Something
of fun.
serious.
But I enjoyed it. Like, what was your take on his comedic performance? Because I loved it.
I loved it. Yeah.
I thought it was understated but perfect. Like
Correct.
if it wasn't wacky, it wasn't zany, it was more
No.
just like supreme confidence and being able to
Yep.
bring a little bit of a levity to a situation, more so to assuage the people around him. And I thought that was really clever because it wasn't necessarily direct laugh out loud jokes for the audience, at least not for me. And I'm fully aware some of the stuff may have been lost in translation because we don't speak the language natively, right? So reading some of it in subtitles and having to kind of catch up may and often does do us a disservice, but we can kind of read through. And his just the way that he moved and like just an extraordinarily enigmatic presence. Like you just can't take your eyes off him anytime he's on the screen. And I love that. The tongue, the flippance, like especially when he rolls up. Now, spoilers to get to later on, but when he rolls up on that car wearing the hat and having the special surprise, it was.
Yeah. It was pretty good. No, Mammootty's. I got to give a lot of credit to the director, cinematographer, whoever was involved in sort of framing Mammootty like the way they did, and sort of enhancing his comedic style, if I put it like that. Because, you're definitely right. It is more subtle, if I have to put it like that, than what I've seen before. Like his comedic style is more about him sort of delivering a punchline, which that gets lost on us because of one, the slang and the way he's speaking, which was I guess a point of contention for a few people who said that we might not enjoy this movie as much because of that. Look, I still found the movie pretty funny because of sort of Mammootty's mannerisms, his facial expressions. Some of the things he even said, even in the subtitles, were pretty funny, but the delivery was more around sort of his sort of way he just delivers something and some of his actions, So the framing was really good. I think they really set Mammootty up for success. So, I mean, overall, I didn't have any complaints about sort of Mammootty's comedic style. And it was just a good experience to sort of see him do that. In fact, I'd love to see more of him playing comedic roles like this, to be honest, because I do feel like he doesn't have to be like your typical comedian, like, slapstick, or he doesn't have to compare himself to anybody. He could do comedy his own way. And that's what this movie showed me. So, guys in the comment sections, like you guys always do, what's the next Mammootty comedy movie we should do? Because that would be a great one. I'd love to know that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I guess before we sort of go on, we did have another question. His name, Rajamanikyam. Now, we don't know the meaning behind Rajamanikyam. Like, I know Raja means king. And we did do a bit of research trying to find out what Manikyam meant. From what we could tell, it means some kind of stone or some kind of something precious or something like that, which would make a lot of sense in the context of this movie. Like, he is a precious, stone, uncut diamond or something like that, or diamond in the rough, something.
Ooh, yeah, like definitely diamond in the rough. And the reason that we brought this up is because we were talking right before we began recording the show. And, Ashok, especially if you're watching, thank you again. Oftentimes you'll tell me about, the meanings of names, or you'll tell me about the subtext of a particular thing or a setting. And I had a feeling that there might be something to his name that gives a little bit more information about the journey that we don't see much here in the movie, which is Rajamanikyam, the boy, to the man, right? And like, what was the relationship between him and the father, and why was he given the estate? There's a part of it that we don't necessarily see, and it didn't really detract from the movie, especially by the time we get to what he was really trying to achieve in the end, which he tells us, from the moment he gets there, like, well, we got to straighten these kids out. But I thought there might be something to that name to tell us, who this person really is. Like, who was he set up to be in that moment?
Mm-hmm. Correct. So, let us know in the comments, guys. But let's get on to the first scene. I've done something a little bit differently, man. The first scene here is not necessarily a scene. It's actually a bit of a compilation, if you want to put it like that. But you get to know more when I chuck it in, because I do want to highlight something. It's a bit of everything. I'll put it like that. But this is the first one. The rest will be a few scenes, but this one specifically is a combination of a few scenes.
All right.
So let's see what this is all about. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a banger.
I mean, come on. Every time the song came out, I was the happiest I could possibly be.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, come on now. That right there. Look at that.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
like,
about. Exactly right. It's just
every single time it hits so hard.
It does.
And that's where I was saying, like, it's not as funny, right? Like it's clever and it's humorous.
Correct.
But it's more to just let you know, like, this person's got it. You know, if he enters the frame, he's gonna take it.
Yep. See, just the way he walks.
I know.
Yeah, so that was a quick one, but I wanted to highlight the fact that, the presence of Mammootty, like that's sort of what I really want to highlight in that sort of scene. And you picked it up exactly in that third one or whatever it was, when he's sort of just walking and using his physical presence. That's something that I really appreciated and enjoyed in this movie from Mammootty's side. It was just like, and I think they knew it, because this is a small sample of how many scenes there were like this, but there'll be so many scenes where it's just like whoosh, Mammootty's face now, like whoosh, quick, a quick cut to Mammootty's close up to what he's looking at, or something like that. It always be emphasizing that point over and over again, and it just, I think that's what the director did really well in this movie. He knew who he was working with and how to present Mammootty as a comedic character, but also intimidating presence as well, to sort of carry the sort of story forward as well. It's just fantastic. Like it's one of the best examples I've seen of this, to be honest. Just that consistent commitment to being like, this is the guy. We're going to show you over and over again the theme song. Sometimes in serious scenes, sometimes in comedic scenes. It's always there, but it always works.
I was just enamored with that theme song every single time it came out. I was so happy. But what I realize now, especially watching those scenes, and I'm glad you kind of did it, where it was that is like the beginning of the movie, we have a very serious tone. We have a mother abandoning her son. We have a kid that doesn't want the mother. We have the mother being struck. We have this guy appearing to intimidate this kid, and we don't really know until later on what really happens. But then, we also have the scene where the father is beaten, with a brick after being framed for a murder, and like, whoa, like for a little while there at the beginning of the movie. And, it's about 25 minutes until we actually see our main character for the rest of the movie. But for a little while at the beginning, I was like, this is a lot heavier than I anticipated. And I think that's where the levity comes in. So you can't necessarily call it humor, and you can't call it laugh out loud funny, but you can call it levity. Like what he brings to the second and third act of the film is really just a presence of like, all right, it's all sorted out now. Raja's here. Raja. Like, hey,
definitely. No, the first, it's 25 minutes, half an hour, however long it was pretty long before we got to see that first like iconic scene where he just sort of comes in and with the glasses and the look, the orange shirt. It's just like,
I was trying to wear a purple shirt before tonight. I didn't have one washed. I'm sorry.
The costume design is also great because he's always looking like he's someone that's really flashy, really trying to
like detracts from the eye, and I really enjoyed that too. That like there are a few moments of vulnerability where he's willing to talk about what happened, and he never really cries or anything like that. The closest you get to that is, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but later on in the movie, when he's talking to another one of the characters, but that's what I really enjoyed about him, is just like a confident figurehead of a group of friends that get things done. And that's it. And that scene where they walk into the college where they're just like, okay, what are we here for again? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This guy touched somebody. All right, let's go deal with it. And they walk out and they're like, yeah, we did it.
It was pretty good. Definitely, it was very good. They sort of they sort of re-emphasize a few things too, like with the whole English speaking thing and how his sort of friendship. I guess that's kind of a bonding thing with one of his friends that he considers a brother. The one that can speak English. There's a few comedic moments there as well.
And him reading for him, like how he's illiterate.
Yeah. did emphasize that quite a bit. But yeah, we did see some familiar faces too. I don't know how many of them are included in sort of the scenes I've included, so it's a good chance to talk about them. But yeah, Doug, you mentioned before you noticed the cop in this movie was from a movie that one of your first. I feel like it's one of your first Malayalam
I think it was
movies that
either
you'd
one or
seen.
two. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe after we had seen a few, but yeah, it was one of the early ones. But yeah, that's the older brother from Joji.
And like the most recognizable face, I just immediately hit on it. And especially like we get a lot of close-ups of his face after he gets hit.
We do.
So we spent some time there, and I was just happy
yeah.
to see. But like I was telling you before we hit record that these two movies, they kind of remind me of movies in the Guy Ritchie space where it's like we might have a stable of actors and we might pull some of this, we might pull some of this. And this movie might be a little bit more serious than the last one, which was a little more slapsticky, or this one, which is kind of silly. And they all have a great meaning. And like there's a feeling that surrounds them. There's almost an aura. And like the aura of this movie and Chota Mumbai are very similar. They're no way the same, but like it just immediately felt like sitting back in that comfortable seat and you're like, wonderful. I know where I am. I don't know these people and I don't know this story, but I know where I am. And I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, no, Guy Ritchie is a great comparison because his comedy is also not like laugh out loud kind of comedy a lot of the times. Like at least the movies I've seen of his, mostly like Snatch, Lock, Stock, and About Two Barrels, or whatever it was. We mentioned The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Like they all have comedic elements to them, but they're not like super like like you're on the floor laughing or anything like that.
Nobody's beating you with a fish,
No, is it? Yeah. Speaking of beating with the fish, we got another familiar character in The Father as well, which was he plays a father in both of these movies.
Extraordinary.
And
couldn't be happier to have discovered this performer. Like, just incredible.
Really good. And the interesting fact is he is actually younger than both Mammootty and Mohanlal.
I knew it when you said you were going to hit me with something. Like he's just one of those people that can pull that off. He really like he could be any age. If you shaved his mustache and you told me he was 20 years old, I'd believe you. And if you powder his hair and make it gray and you told me he was 80, I'd believe you. It's amazing.
And the one that's going to probably strike you, and I don't know if this is going to surprise you too much, but the mother, who they made to look old, like if you were to take a guess of her age, it is 20. It's like 24 or something like that.
No, that I would not believe that
She's
at
in
all.
her mid-20s. Yep.
Wild.
She's in her mid-20s. Like that. As soon as I was like, okay, she doesn't look, very old for who she's trying to play. But then I found out, she's like 45 of today's age, and this movie is about 20 years or like that. So she's in like her early 20s. So that's kind of wild to me as well.
Another great performance, though. Excellent.
Yeah, another great performance. I liked all the performances in this, to be honest. I especially liked the his second-hand man.
The best.
He was played by a character called Rahman. Yeah, he was just so the actor's name is Rahman, playing Raju, Manikyam's adopted brother and educated manager. It's just like, well, this movie I wouldn't say this movie did a great job of fleshing out like all the bonds between like, I guess Rajamanikyam's like gang or his friends. We didn't really know what the relationship was. We didn't have too much history between them, but I guess that those two, you could tell why they were sort of close because he was like, hey, I need you for everything. Like you are like my brother. And it's a really touching scene at the end as well when he sort of, he embraces both his brothers essentially, which is really nice as well. But yeah, let's carry on with some of the scenes here. This guy was great as well.
He really was. Good.
Damn. This scene got me like far out.
Oh yeah.
Just no regard. This is another great thing. The car.
Oh yeah, Raja Benz.
Yeah.
അപ്പൊ പ്രതീക്ഷിച്ച പോലെ തന്നെ കൊച്ചുമുതലാണ് ശുദ്ധികലശം തുടങ്ങിയല്ലേ? അമ്മ പുറത്തേക്ക് ഇറങ്ങിയതോ അതോ ഇറക്കി വിട്ടതോ? രണ്ടായാലും അമ്മയുടെ ഇഷ്ടം. പക്ഷെ ഈ മകൾക്ക് ഇഷ്ടം ഇന്നു മുതൽ ഇവിടെ താമസിക്കാനാ.
കർപ്പൂരം കത്തിച്ച് കോടി പൊതച്ച് ഈ ഉമ്മറത്ത് മലന്ന് കിടക്കാനാണ് മഹാറാണിക്ക് ഇങ്ങോട്ട് കേറാം. കർപ്പൂരം കോടി മുണ്ടും ഇവർക്ക് മാത്രമല്ല നിനക്ക് നന്നായി ചെയ്തു.
So brutal.
Yeah, and they did a really good job of just making him extraordinarily unlikable.
Correct.
Like almost immediately. and that unreadable face.
Yeah,
കണ്ണന്തിരികളെ കാണിക്കാതെ തള്ളകളും പിള്ളകളും തമ്മിൽ തർക്കങ്ങൾ പതിവനെ എന്ന് വെച്ച് തള്ളയെ പിടിച്ച് തള്ളണോടെ ഇവിടെ കയറി വന്ന് ന്യായോ അന്യായം പറയാൻ നമ്മളാരാണാവോ നമ്മൾ വെറും വഴിവാക്കര്
Again, the shirts.
I love this guy too.
Yeah, he's great.
There we go.
Oh, God. This has...
This.
Yeah.
തർക്കങ്ങൾ ചെയ്യാമെന്നവരെ തല്ലി പുറത്താക്കുന്നത്
The
ശരിയാണ്
best. The absolute best.
പിടിച്ച് പുറത്തേക്ക് തള്ളടാ.
Oh,
It's
that was
just
pretty funny.
and it's also just a wonderful intro to like how he's going to handle stuff there, because he's so understated. He acts the buffoon so that these people kind of get a little bit roped in, and he doesn't immediately show up and say like, I'm here, I'm in charge, I'm going to be doing these things. He just allows them to kind of play out so he can get a good feeling of who they are. Right.
Yeah.
And by the time that we get to the end of the movie and we have our other sort of reckoning with Selvam, the character, and this is really the genesis of it all. How he's willing to show up, get the read of the room, figure stuff out. Not only that, not tell his mother who he is.
No,
that scene that we did later on, like I got a little confused at one point. I was like, okay, did she recognize him? Does she know who he is? Like, no. The movie tells us he walks out of that door and she never sees him again.
No.
Like, whoa. Like that's again, so those are the stakes where like what he's really trying to achieve, and several times over is given the opportunity to, have a conversation with his mom and is like, no, like that's done. That stuff is over and done. He knows he has the possibility to do something with these other kids, his own flesh and blood sister and his stepbrother, kind of those extraordinary things where when you watch the movie and then you think about that a little bit later on, you're like, wow, all right, so this is a very smart character who knows how to read people. And that's why he's as successful as he is.
Correct. And also this highlights the sort of hardship he sort of had to go through. It plays out well because he's a over-the-top character, he's charismatic, but there's this sort of, I guess, sadness that he's always sort of carrying around, which he works very hard to not show. I mean, that's a comedic way of not showing it with the whole eye thing. Like, we saw that sort of play out. But yeah, later on we see that is a point that really gets him. Like he says that he has all the money to fix his eye, but he's kept it as a scar and a reminder, which is wild. But yeah, he's decided to stay in the darkness all this time. But yeah, this is probably one of the funnier scenes in terms of the slapstick thing with sort of him just sort of spinning around.
Yeah,
you don't see that
pure
too much. But yeah, I do like his other friend who just sort of has the glasses ready on him, and the way he just does like a little, like a little, like
fling right back open, like he's unconscious.
At the call. But it's funny. But this is sort of what I liked about this movie too, in terms of the genre blending that I was talking about before. It took a very serious scene, a very heavy scene, which sort of you mentioned about how sort of Rajamanikyam and Mammootty's character really brings about levity. Because this is probably one of the more slapsticky scenes, but at the same time, it's like we're going to diffuse the situation by him just coming in.
Yeah.
And not necessarily even being a badass, just being like, hey, here I am, and this is going to be diffused with me just being here. And for the audience, it lets you be like, all right, here's a comedic part right here, here's something else we can see. And it's sort of, it's important that they do this at the start, because now every time we see him, there's like a smile on our face. It just carries through the whole way. So yeah, I mean, this was a great intro. Probably one of the more important scenes, I think, to establish the characters, and it does that really well. We even had the scene
Couldn't agree more.
With the daughter, I guess, and sort of the politics between, or the not politics, the disagreement between the two siblings
tension
as well.
Between the two.
And there are different ways of manipulation. While she's sort of more, I guess, cerebral or more sort of intellectual, kind of like she's trying to like manipulate the mother and say, she's using her words more, whereas the brother literally takes his father's picture and just smashes it. I was like,
smashes
it. Like this is how you show this guy does not care anymore. Like he's taking the frame and just putting it, he's kicking people, taking the throne. Like it's established also well in that one scene. So really good. So this is the revelation. so many guns in this movie as well. Like
Lots of guns.
Yeah.
എന്റെ പയ്യനെ നീ പോലീസിനെ കൊണ്ട് അടുപ്പിക്കല്ലേ
നിർത്താനല്ലേ പറഞ്ഞത്
Decorating him.
എല്ലാത്തിനെയും കൊന്നു കുഴിച്ചു മൂടാനാണ് നീ വന്നെങ്കിൽ ആദ്യം എന്നെ കൊല്ലേ ഇവരെ ഇങ്ങനെ ഇട്ട് ദ്രോഹിക്കാനൊന്നും ആരും ആരെ അധികാരപ്പെടുത്തിയിട്ടില്ല എന്തിനാ ഈ അംഗം നീ ആരാണെന്ന് അറിയാൻ ഇവൻ പോലീസ് പരാതിപ്പെട്ടതിനോ എന്നാൽ ആ പരാതി ഇപ്പൊ എനിക്കുണ്ട് ഇതൊക്കെ എന്റെ മക്കളാ ആ വലിയ മനുഷ്യന്റെ ഭാര്യയാ ഞാൻ
That's got, that rough.
Yeah.
These are my children.
Yes. The flashback.
എന്താ നിനക്ക് വേണ്ടത്
Yeah, this surprised me too, to be honest.
ആയിഷി അപ്പൊ ഞാൻ ആരാന്നറിയണം അത്രയല്ലേ ഉള്ളു ഒരു പാരാത്രിക്ക് ഒരു മണിയറ വായില് മുട്ടിയപ്പോഴാണ് ഈ ചോദ്യം ഞാൻ ആദ്യമായിട്ട് കേൾക്കുന്നത് ആരാണ് നീ എന്തിനാണ് നിനക്ക് വേണ്ടത് അപ്പൊ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞ് എനിക്ക് എന്റെ അമ്മയെ വേണം അപ്പൊ ആ അമ്മ പറഞ്ഞ് ആ മകൻ അറിയില്ല
It's the subtleties in Mammootty's voice.
I feel like he's
Quivering.
really selling it.
Yeah.
അത്തോടെ തീ നീട്ടി ഊരും പേരും ഒക്കെ ഇതായിരിക്കണ് എന്തിനു നോക്കണത് ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞല്ലേ ഇതൊന്നും വേണ്ടെന്ന് ഈ വലിയ മനുഷ്യണ്ടല്ലേ ഇത്തേറ്റ പേരാണ് മാണിക്യം
Rajamanikyam.
രായമാണിക്യം
Yeah, it's another really good scene. And I think that's one thing that, just talking about Mammootty a little bit more, it's like the thing that makes him such a strong character actor and can be, throw himself into a role so seamlessly, it seems like, from a lot of the roles I've seen him do, is just he's a master of these subtleties. So just that way he's able to sort of have, he is talking in a specific slang, a specific way, which is not his natural slang, I'm assuming, the way he speaks, a natural accent or dialect he's speaking in. So he's doing that, and at the same time, he's able to convey the emotions with his. That scene especially because you can tell he's getting emotional there with sort of the way he's talking,
And behind glasses.
And behind glasses, yeah, that's also a great point as well. He's only got really half his face to show the emotions, but he's able to do it so well. It's pretty fantastic. But the other thing, Mammootty has this deep voice that's just so good. I think it's just like him. He's really a master of sort of the voice control, and you as a voice actor should probably could pick up on that a bit more as well, right?
The difference between every other performance I've seen of his and this is that like everything is kind of smoke and mirrors to kind of immediately make himself unknown to anybody except for those people who already know who he is. And that is one thing I love most about this scene, because this is the moment we just talked about where his own mother didn't know who he was. He didn't even want anyone there to know who he was. He wasn't going to tell anyone. If he achieved his goal, if by the end of the movie he achieved his goal and no one was any the wiser about who he was, he would have just left.
Yeah.
He would have been like, okay, you've proven to me it's fine. So the 25 years is up. This is yours now. He would have just gone. He had no interest in flaunting that. And he doesn't. Continually throughout the rest of the movie until we get to the point where, he's going to prove to the brother that he cares about him in so much as he's willing to just be like, look, you are our father's son. So I will protect you. And then that, leads to the very nice, sweet moment at the end. But that was where the movie turned for me. And I realized that it wasn't, again, not to beat a dead horse, but it's levity and it's uplifted, but there are lots of stakes and people almost die and there are guns and there are constant fights, but this is just somebody who knows that he's got the upper hand and he's going to use it.
Correct. Yep.
And you get that almost immediately upon meeting him, and that's exactly the way it rides out.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Really good. Really, really good. It's a really good performance. It's a really good story that they're sort of telling. And that commitment to just not telling anybody unless he absolutely has to, which he gets to the point, and it leads to it helps sort of, the journey go through later on as well, because then the mother has to call on him for help. But he is really doing a good job of suppressing who he actually is, and hiding the pain of that as well. So it's just a fantastic performance. There was a little bit in this movie that I did want to touch on about sort of, I guess, the journey that you sort of mentioned before, how sort of between the father, we didn't get to really see that explored too much. I will give this movie one sort of big piece of credit is that it's 2 hours, a very tight movie. And I will say that when I'm watching this movie, I think about 50 minutes had passed in this movie, and I paused it for a second, and I was surprised at the fact that I'd got to an hour because it just happened so quickly.
It's
really, it's so well done. Like I was like, wow, this is really going by fast. I didn't notice that half the movie's done already, but at the same time, maybe that was one of the reasons why we didn't get so much of sort of, I guess, seeing Mammootty grow up or seeing Rajamanikyam grow up, because there's a lack of, storytelling from that regard between the stepfather and Rajamanikyam. The mother apparently didn't even know about him and didn't even try and find him. Like she's just like, I had a son, I've ditched him, he's out of my life, I'm not thinking about him ever again. I do wish that was explored a little bit more to help, I guess, fill in those gaps. But what did you think about sort of that whole?
No, I completely agree, especially like as you watch a movie now, but then you think about like if this movie was made now, say if it was made now and it was made in Hollywood or Hollywood adjacent, right? Like, or predominantly English speaking place, there would be a scene where, he would show up and he'd be like, do you have a son?
Uh-huh.
Did you ever have a son? Like it would be leading and all this stuff. And the character would not be subtle about it whatsoever. It would be playing to the camera. And we do have that one quick scene where he's talking to him and we get that flashback and he's like, and I got these kids and they're just awful. And, this really quick thing when he says like, if I had talked to him, if I had known that was the last time I was going to talk to him, I maybe would have said some other things. But I do wish because why did he choose to keep him a mystery? Did he send him to the school in which he gets the injury with his eye? And why was he still so close to everybody without anybody else knowing? Like, there are questions there and you can unfurl that ball. It's secondary to what the movie ultimately wants to achieve, which is that resolution where a kid is acting like a grateful kid and a brother. Right? Like that's where we land the movie. So I get it. We didn't necessarily need that. And yeah, you don't want to bloat an already 2-hour runtime beyond that if you already have a good story and a fantastic performance from Mammootty of all people. So could I have used it? Absolutely. Did I miss it? Only in the I wonder. And then we got to the next fight scene and I didn't miss anything because it was great. Or the next music drop and I didn't care.
Yep. But the next, I guess, prominent scene that comes up, the next the next head, spin or something like that. I definitely do agree. But I guess by watching these movies from this time period, it's helping me to sort of like almost embrace the fact that we don't need perfect stories all the time. Yeah. Like I don't need all the gaps to be filled. Like the whole point is the experience of the movie. And if you are going to tell me something exposition or through a flashback or something like that, and you think it's going to I guess compromise the pacing of the movie, then I'm happy for you to not put it in, because I enjoyed the pacing of this movie. It's one of the best parts of this movie, to be honest. It flies by. Like a 2-hour movie, it's not 2 hours is not super short either. It's still a good amount of time, but the fact this flies by so easily, this is a testament to the fact that this movie just runs so smoothly and there's barely any gaps in this movie, despite being a very simple story. It's not super complicated. It's pretty simple, but it's just, I think that's a real credit to the writing and the direction of this movie. It's fantastic.
Agreed.
Oh, we can talk about the action.
Yeah, baby. This was hands down my favorite of the fight scenes.
This is a great background score, man.
And I love the fact that he's just sitting there getting massaged, and he even brings it up in the scene. He's like, "Right, are you getting oiled? All right."
Yeah.
And how subtly he approaches. Like he never approaches with an intent to act now.
It's this natural swagger, like him just spinning the baton around.
And what is he chewing on? Is that are we led to believe is that like tobacco or something?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's how he diffuses. He immediately brings down the tension for everybody else around him.
Yeah.
The best.
Yeah, man. This drop is hilarious. Just damn. It's like a.
There's not much to say about that scene other than like what you can just see written on everybody's faces. Like that must have been the most fun scene in the whole movie to film. If I had to guess,
I think so.
You know, it just wasn't in the fight that preceded that immediately. Like just him standing there watching his friend like, you didn't do so good at the start, but he's going to pull it out.
No. Yeah, no, that scene was...
The belt was so good.
No, that fight scene was a good one. Maybe I should have included that one too, but I missed that fight scene.
I think this scene is more important, right? Because this is our first revelation that like the brother who we've really thought is the bad guy the whole time, or our major antagonist the entire time, really isn't. You know,
he switches it up.
Exactly. Like when it changes, and by the time we get to the third act and we understand that we're now going for this character, I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, that makes space for where we land. And I loved that scene so much. Him just rolling up in the car.
I love it. And just like he's like looking to the side and he looks to the front with the glasses. I think the glasses are different ones, the bigger ones. Yeah. Maybe they're the cop glasses or something like that.
Perfect.
But yeah, he pulls it off, and there is this like swagger that Mammootty has in this specific scene where I absolutely love. Like this, the way he's walking, it's almost like he's hopping, like when he's going up the steps, like, yep, here I come, you know?
Yeah, like and that's again to disarm everyone around him. Just like, no, I'm not here for any of that. I'm just here to have a conversation. You know, like, hey, you get massaged? What? Oh, we better talk.
It's a pretty good inspiration for, because we see those like none that come into my head. It's like straight away, but we have those like antagonists that are like play that comedic kind of role too, like comedic antagonists. Mm-hmm. You know, they're kind of like a mad side or something like that, but they have like a comedic side to them as well. This is kind of what Mammootty's bringing out, like in that sort of like, he's not an antagonist, but he's sort of doing this like, you know, menacing but funny kind of guy. So he kind of always disarms you and keeps you on the edge. It's like, is he serious now? Is he being funny now? You can't really pick it up exactly. There's a movie that recently came out from the Malayalam film industry called Avesham, which a lot of people talked about. It's a Fahad Fasil movie, which I've got to get you to check that movie out. But a lot of the inspiration was from this, because he plays the same kind of comedic, but he was like kind of more like a gangster goon in that role. But there are a lot of similarities between these two kind of characters, which is just, I can see the inspiration straight away. So this is, the reason why this movie must have been so popular was because, again, it was so influential in sort of these kind of characters. So fantastic. Loved it.
What's not to love about a character like that? You know, like you can just, there's nothing to not root for in a character like this. It's extraordinary. Like I love a very nuanced character, and I love, our anti-heroes, and I love all that stuff. Exactly. But like, man, when it's just purely somebody who is capable of doing something and that's what they do, it's kind of like John Wick, right? Like, John Wick is going to kill a whole lot of people and he's justified in doing it, and you're on board. And here we have a character who is going to show up and he's going to straighten out a lot of people, and he's justified every step of the way. And I'm on board.
Correct. So again, absolutely love the performances. There's just, you're right, there's not really much more to say about that scene, but I did like the other antagonist too as well. The other, I guess, when we find out who he is.
And he's in the background of some scenes, and it isn't until like we learn more about him that he starts to come to the forefront, this being the biggest example of that. And that was a really cool kind of sleight of hand act as well.
Yeah. But it's impressive how a lot of these like performers and actors, like even because Mammootty obviously has a lot of screen time to flesh out his character. We see him in a few scenes. We see his like friend, and we see the siblings quite a bit. But there are a few characters here, like the mother, like this specific character, who are given very little screen time, but yet they have an impact, which is pretty great. I do give it up to these characters. Are like, hey, you have about 10 minutes of screen time, but you have to do all this, and they do it pretty well. So
absolutely,
it's a testament to sort of the quality of acting across the industry. Like, we can talk about Mammootty or what we like, but there are a lot of good actors in this movie as well. Music is used so well in this
the music
movie.
is insane. There's another music drop later on with some like really gnarly electric guitar in it, and I was like, yes.
That imposing figure.
Rajamanikyam. Enna veno? Vanna Shelvanu vendittan. Ava ende aniyanaanu. എനിക്ക് അവനെ വേണം.
You can see that twist right there.
Yeah.
അനിയനോ അണ്ണനോ.
But that only comes as a result of having us seen the conversation where he's on the phone with our other antagonist and he realizes that he's not
അവനെ കൂട്ടിയിട്ട് പോണം.
Yeah.
going to help him, and as a matter of fact, he's going to throw him under the bus.
Exactly.
കോടി. മുടിയുമാ. ഇപ്പം കായകളായിട്ട് ഒരു 50 ലക്ഷം അങ്ങോട്ട് തരും. ബാക്കി പത്രത്തിൽ എഴുതി തരും.
And then the person that has every right to show up and be like, you know what, keep him,
Uh-huh.
gives money of his own, doesn't do anything violent whatsoever, with the exception of, like I talked about when we first got going, you know,
Correct.
if you hit, I'm going to hit, but then I'll
Yeah.
stop. Like,
கடவுளே இவ்வளவு சீக்கிரம் முடிச்சு கொடுத்துட்டியே சார் ஒரு சைன் பண்ணுங்க. மாணிக்கம் நீங்க தான் அன்பார்ந்த பெரிய அண்ணன். உட்காருங்க உட்காருங்க. ஆத்தி அவனை விളിക്ക്. தம்பி செல்வா வாங்க தம்பி உங்க அண்ணன் வந்திருக்காரு.
just that look, like, why?
Yeah.
ഇത് എന്തൊരു
It is a nice message, man. It's a nice message about the story.
ഏത് പുള്ളാള് ഈ പുള്ളാളാ?
I loved, yes.
The pistol whipping.
നീ ചെല്ല് പോയി വണ്ടി കയറി.
Like, he made the deal. He paid money. He did what he had to do, and then he
Yeah.
walked away. Like, it's a really cool, subtle, like, if they made novels about this character, I would read every single one of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Honestly,
like,
yeah.
there's some really fascinating kind of just his internal monologue is the only thing that I really miss from this movie. What could he have been thinking? Why does he act the way that he does? We don't get a lot of that.
Yeah.
You know, so we talked about, like, that it's not a gripe
That's
in
true.
any way. This is not a slight against
No,
the
no,
movie. It's just that
definitely
if they were going to continue in the way that, like, in Drishium, you know, we've got a second chapter.
Yeah.
Are they still working on that third chapter?
I think probably, yeah. I
Yeah.
would assume so.
Let us know.
Yeah.
Please let us know.
Yeah. Let us know any Disham details.
But you know, if this character was fleshed out more, and you could be the further adventures, or like the young adventures of, in the way that we do it with like
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes, like, what is his motivation? Why is he so stoic? Why is he so unbelievably certain? I get that he is, and I believe that he is. I would just like to know what is going on in his brain, because in a
Correct.
scene like that, he has every opportunity to just show up and take everyone out.
Yeah.
He really
that's what he
could have
should.
ended everything about that, but instead he paid what was owed, and that's
Yep.
mind-boggling to me. Every single
Correct.
time he has a chance to walk in and act first, he does not.
Correct. I think that's part of the
smart.
allure and the charisma of him, that we can't really pinpoint him or understand him too well, which just sort of helps, I guess, from living out that internal dialogue. Helps for this movie specifically, because you're just like, I can never, again, it's that same thing I said before. Sometimes he's like, he's angry, you can't tell if he's angry, he's saying something in a joking way. It's the same kind of thing, like, when's he going to act out? Because things flip so quickly with him, which is really great. He's like always on the edge, and it can just
Right.
change from like, you know, everything is fine now. Wait a second. Oh, you know, here comes a big, you know, a big whip, and then his friend takes out 2 pistols. There's a lot of pistols in this movie. Like,
there were a
people
staggering amount of pistols.
Just walk around with pistols. Like even at the start, they're just like, let me just take a gun out. I don't think it's that common for people to just carry with guns around. At least I haven't seen it so much in you know, Malayalam cinema. So it's,
I don't know,
every
man.
time I
It
see
happens a lot in Guy Ritchie movies.
That's true.
Yeah.
Maybe it's inspiration. But yeah, that was another really great scene. But I'm seeing, yeah, he's always wearing some flashy shirts. Like that's another thing. He's always got that
That
costume on.
distraction,
Like,
you know,
it's-
that
yeah.
like he's
Over
done
and over
himself up
again.
as a caricature of somebody, and
Uh-huh.
that's why I want to know, like, because I love reading so much. God, I would
Yeah.
read up a book about him just walking into a town and, for instance, being like, well, somebody tried to take over the bull trade here, like,
Yeah.
and I can't let that happen. You know,
Oh, if
where
that happens.
or buying his car, you know, like any of
Uh-huh.
that stuff, like. It would just be really fascinating to learn more about his
It would be.
internal process, because he's very intelligent, even if he can't read, even if he has an issue with his eye, even if he can't sign his own name, right? Like,
That's right. Yeah.
all of that stuff is secondary to somebody who is absolutely fiercely who they are. He never
Correct,
betrays anything
No.
about the character that you see on display from the moment that he walks into a room. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
It's so good. It's so good. Very, very enjoyable. Yeah, let's jump on to the next one. All right. This is the action scene. There we go.
Yes. I loved that so much.
Yeah. Just smashes this.
Oh yeah,
Spin around
give it to me. Give it to me. You better flip all the way over.
Yeah. Oh. Wow, roundhouse kick.
That is an incredible kick.
That is really good. Don't call Van Damme.
The moment I saw that red shirt, I knew what was coming.
Yeah.
Like we had too many scenes with bulls to not have a good idea of what was coming. We even had a scene where he was like, "Stop right there."
Yes,
you're wearing red.
That was great.
Never look at an explosion, you know?
No. Oh, the big baddie.
This one actually did shock me.
Yeah.
For a minute, I thought for sure.
Yep. We're getting a twist.
Yeah.
Damn. Damn, man.
I thought
That got me.
that was at least 20 seconds of me being like, what felt like 20 seconds of me being like, whoa.
Oh.
Yep, that big old powerful hit. And like, that's one thing I love about the way they filmed him fighting, is that he's just like powerful. He's not necessarily the most athletic, but when he hits, it hurts.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. It is. You're exactly right. And it goes back to sort of the stuff that I talked about at the start with the director and how cleverly he used Mammootty in the way he framed him to put him in the best positions, both comedically and he doesn't have too many action sequences. I think this is the only one where he actually gets physical, to be honest.
Toward the beginning, he's very physical as well. Like the first scene where we see him at his own, bull ranch or his farm, wherever.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple other ones, but mostly it's like what we saw in the scene where he goes to get Selvum is that I'll hit you a couple of times and then we're good. Or it's going to stop, and most of the other stuff is handled by everybody else. And who cares? It doesn't matter. You don't have to be the most articulate and athletic person for me to be able to be sold on whether or not you're imposing and whether or not you're capable of doing what you ultimately do. And that's what's so incredible about him, and specifically his other friend. His friend and brother, like those two in particular. Like the gang here isn't as punchy and memorable as some, any other gang movie out there. But what is achieved is, and I really love that the entire thesis statement of this movie is just like, oh, that guy sees me as a brother now.
Yeah. Very touching.
That's very cool. That's cool to me. At this stage in my life, I really think like, if you're in your 20s maybe, or if you're in your teens, you might not get why that matters so much, especially in the, in the wake of losing who you thought was your father, or who became your father. But that stuff matters so much. And it's just a really, really cool thing to see somebody who has like this enormous empire. We're told like
Yeah.
Even this estate that he is watching over might be a fraction of his
Yeah.
own. Everything that he actually has on his own. And the only
Mhm.
thing that he really cares about is just honoring a dead man's wishes and potentially connecting with his family. And he does both of those things.
Correct.
What more do you
Yep.
need?
Yep. Definitely right. No, it's a nice wholesome story that they've basically told at the end, which I really like. That like there is a great message towards this movie. It picks up more towards the second half once and it does a good job of sort of having less time to really explore that aspect of things, but still exploring it in a very powerful, impactful way. I think there's another crucial scene when I don't think Rajamanikyam knew that what you call it, his like the father was actually
Who was
murdered.
really
Like, he thought he was
responsible?
actually
Yeah.
killed. He's like, okay, wow. And then I think his the other character, the one that the helper, he tells him that he wasn't actually killed, he was murdered, and it just changes the whole dynamic of the movie. But it does it so quickly and swiftly. Again, we're just highlighting the emphasis on sort of the pacing of this movie and how it's able to achieve so much in such less time. So, another testament to this director, Anwar Rasheed. Big fans of his directional style, to be honest, after the two movies
Excellent
we've seen.
stuff.
But
Truly.
I definitely agree with you with sort of the way that they sort of use Mammootty and his action style, because like it is something like you don't need to be super athletic, you don't need to be super you don't have to have you should have a distinct fighting style. If he doesn't have to be a martial artist, he doesn't have to be anything like that, but if they can use him and highlight what Mammootty has, like almost more than anybody else, which is his big physical stature, which he's just born with that. He's sort of got there and sort of built his way to that. If you highlight that and make it so that every single punch, it feels like a punch with him, and that's what they've done here. Every time he kicks somebody, he's able to grab the guy's hand while he's trying to stab him. The director's done a really good job of understanding how to use Mammootty to the best of his ability, and
Absolutely.
he does that again and again and again in different circumstances. So yeah, it's a real great partnership. I hope there's more movies between these two, because like I think the way he used Mammootty was really, really good. But yeah, I'm not too familiar with Anwar Rashid's, I guess, cinematography. So we'd love to know in the comment section, guys. Let us know if there's any other Anwar Rashid movies
please
we
do.
should be checking out, because
it's just an absolute blast. It's like coming back home after a really long trip and being like, oh yeah, that's why all of this stuff was my favorite. All of the seeds for all of the things that I really love and have been explored in different ways in modern movies, and including some of the more modern, and maybe most importantly in some of the more modern Malayalam cinema is here. It's all here. It's just, kind of what gets stripped away, what gets chipped away, what gets whittled down, what gets emphasized. And,
Yes.
you really hit it on the head earlier when you were talking about like perfect stories and scripts. And I made a lot of ado about that when I first started talking about these movies. And man, like everything matters. Every single thing matters.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always have to, so long as the story itself matters. Right. And again, that's not in any way a disservice to this thing. I'm just saying that, like, if I care a lot about this one particular character and what he's going to achieve, that's what I need this movie to do. Oh, and if it has an amazing song while I'm going about it, then great. Then excellent. It just,
Correct.
I was so taken with that particular performance and the fact that it's an understated somebody who could just walk in and stop all of this right now. But chooses to drill in deep and really take the time. And that's what made it all sing for me.
Definitely. Obviously, two big fans of this movie, guys, if you haven't guessed by now. But this was a great movie and really great to watch this sort of back-to-back with Chota Mumbai. I can definitely understand why these two movies were so 100%. Close in the polls. Like, honestly, like even if I was to pick which one I like more, I probably couldn't. Like, these two are pretty good in their own specific ways, in their own unique ways.
Yin, yang. You can't separate them,
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. So great work by Anwar Rashid to create these two together. I don't know if they're back to back because of the timing as well.
It had to have been 2005 and 2007. That's so close.
Yeah, definitely. It was a little bit more trivia about this movie before we wrap up. So the film was the highest grossing Malayalam film of all time, with the earning of 25 crore, breaking the previous records, and is the first Malayalam movie to reach the mark of 25 crore collection. So it was obviously a huge commercial hit. Like it was just loved by the masses. This second part I really like. So actor Suraj Ventura. Now, if he sounds familiar, he is from Mukundan Uni Associates. He plays the like the second advocate.
Yes. The ghost advocate, that shows up later on.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So him, and he had a short scene in Chota Mumbai too, where he's playing what was he doing? He was like he's playing like a creep or something like that. So he apparently was roped in to help Mammootty get the hang of the slang spoken in the border areas of Trivandrum. So he must be local from there. So he got some help to sort of speak that specific way of speaking, that sort of slang, that dialect.
Awesome.
So Mammootty was highly praised for rendering the slang efficiently, and that contributed greatly to it becoming a mega mass film. Rajamanikyam was completed in Polichi in a record time of 55 days. So it was done really quickly. He was definitely praised for his accent, which is great because that's something that we probably won't pick up on, like how well he did it.
I'm really glad that you brought that up, though, because that is that, representation matters. It is a weird blanket statement, but of course, if you're used to seeing movies where everybody speaks very, very eloquently and everybody's put together, a particular way, and then that's another thing that Guy Ritchie does. He's got Cockney accents in his movies, and it's not, oh, I'm a very posh British man.
No.
these are real human beings, and maybe that's. Please let me know if I'm way off the mark here, but if that may have contributed to that success is just seeing somebody who was like a very real member of the society and not necessarily somebody who's polished and refined and speaking perfectly. Exactly. I've got to imagine that was extraordinarily refreshing to see.
No, it's a great point. Like we see it in Hollywood movies a lot. Like every now and then, whenever I see a protagonist that doesn't have a New York or Boston or LA accent, it's definitely, and it's not a Western or something like that. Like if you just have a normal dude who has a different accent, it's always refreshing. But some great trivia, some great facts. Love to know more about it, guys, in the comment section. If you have stuck around this long, we really appreciate you. We love the comments in the comment section, and we both sort of get back to you guys on it. It's like one of the best
parts of my day. When one of these comes out and I get a chance to talk to any of you in the comment section, it just makes me very happy because I do this because I love these movies, and I really the fact that all of you love these movies enough to come and listen to us talk about it just it means more than I could say.
It's amazing. We really appreciate the support, and looking forward to talking to you guys more in the comment section. But Doug, this has been an absolute blast like always, and we'll catch you soon on the next one, man.
And I guess the only thing left to do is
what better way to finish it off, man? I should have brought mine. That would have been just the perfect version.
I should have texted you.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.